Good afternoon, Arbitrators Council. This is Aisha Khan, counsel for Carmen, in response to Matt Miller, counsel for NOI's argument against replacing arbitrator Prasad. I would like to address Mr. Miller's arguments sequentially, and I appreciate Mr. Miller's articulateness. However, we ultimately disagree with the conclusion that he came to. For one, Mr. Miller talked about the discoverability of the metadata. Second, he mentioned the relationship with lit funds and arbitrator Prasad not being an issue. Third, he suggested that the articles that Mr. Prasad wrote had already been disclosed. And fourth, he suggests that Mr. Prasad's work at Barbary and his relationship to NOI's counsel, Constance Ford, are of no consequence. And again, as I said, we disagree with these conclusions. To begin with, the discoverability of the metadata as a work product is questionable because particularly this was discovered through an email that was sent from NOI to Carmen. So the responsibility to keep this information confidential would have fallen upon NOI and NOI's counsel. Our UAA Rule 17C states that an arbitrator may permit such discovery as the arbitrator decides is appropriate in the circumstances, taking into account the needs of the parties to the arbitration proceeding and other affected persons, and the desirability of making the proceeding fair, expeditious, and cost-effective. We believe that to make this proceeding fair, the email that was sent and subsequently deleted shows that there was an attempt on NOI's part to essentially cheat Carmen in placing an arbitrator into the mix that they knew had partial feelings that would favor NOI. Specifically, and I'd like to read for both the arbitrators here and everyone in the room the email that was deleted, because I believe it is very important to the process and that the arbitrators would allow the discovery of the metadata email to enter into this and factor this into the fact that Mr. Prasad is not an impartial arbitrator. The email stated, verify with lit funds whether any contacts between Bill Prasad and them exist. If any such lit funds. If any such contacts exist, we should make sure to keep the third-party funding of our client's litigation secret and avoid any challenges to Bill. Bill was the Barbary presenter when I was taking the bar exam, though he probably wouldn't remember me. Anyway, his views on the enforceability of ethical sourcing standards in his 2013 academic article are great for our client. So the fact that there is an NOI attorney suggesting that information about the partiality of an arbitrator be kept from us, Carmen, and from the process essentially taints the process in itself. And for that reason alone, we could ask that Mr. Prasad himself step aside or that NOI ask him to step aside and replace him. Second, Mr. Miller mentions that the relationship between lit funds and Mr. Prasad is akin to that of someone having a checking account at Wells Fargo and somebody being an interior decorator for Wells Fargo. And I wholly disagree with this comparison. Lit funds is actually funding part of this arbitration. And in funding this arbitration, it would have been absolutely necessary for Mr. Prasad to disclose that, in fact, he in two separate occasions has previously worked with lit funds where they have at least partially, if not entirely, funded the arbitrations that he's working on. So there's certainly a pattern here of Mr. Prasad gaining financially through arbitrations that are funded by lit funds. And the fact that that has since been disclosed does provide my client Carmen a reasonable objection to this arbitrator. Third, the articles that Mr. Prasad written, and we were given 12 articles, but there was really one that was relevant to this. And I'm not sure if giving us 12 that he was trying to bury the one relevant article, but the fact that Mr. Prasad has written an article and feels strongly against the enforceability of responsible sourcing clauses shows that he cannot be impartial. The enforceability of a sourcing clause is the heart of the disagreement here. And it is why we are in arbitration with Carmen and NOI. So the fact that he has a strong opinion leaning one way shows that he is certainly partial to NOI, and it explains why NOI strongly does not want to replace Mr. Prasad. Finally, and this is perhaps the most minor of the infractions, but it would have been Mr. Prasad's best interest and NOI's to disclose that, in fact, there had been at the very minimum a meeting between Mr. Prasad as a Barbary instructor and Ms. Constance Ford, NOI's counsel. As I said, this is the most minor infraction, but because it is now disclosed, it is again a reason for Carmen to object. Both RUAA's Section 12C and D state that upon a party's timely objection, an award may be vacated. We believe that we have strong reasons for objecting, and that should we go through the arbitration process, at the very least we have grounds to appeal any award and would potentially win, in which case this process would begin back at square one, which would both be inefficient and costly to both parties involved. For those reasons, we would ask that either Mr. Prasad recuse himself or that NOI replace Mr. Prasad in this arbitration proceeding. Thank you.